everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And Bart Kwan has found himself in a little bit of a fiasco online. And this got sent to me first thing this morning by a coach I know, because they know with me, with my own backstory and everything else, that I would probably find this pretty interesting. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. Because, you know, Bart Kwan, powerlifter, seems like a reasonably good guy. He got involved in telling some stories about being back in military school and a guy that they jumped of joking about the story that they ended up sticking a broomstick in the guy. So, obviously pretty offensive, in poor taste. And you know what? I guess I'm going to have a stance on this because, again, people out there know that I admit, and there's public information out there about it, that I am myself a childhood sexual abuse survivor. I'm not real big on people joking about this sort of stuff. But all things considered, I guess what I'm going to say up front, I think that Bart's apology was sincere. I think he realizes that it was in poor taste. I mean, it was in poor taste. It was in very poor taste. And I'm saying that as someone, you know, who've had their own life experiences. It was in poor taste. But truth be told, I don't think he intended to be malicious about it. I really get the impression, having watched it, that it wasn't his intention to belittle people's experiences, that I don't think he's making fun of abuse survivors. And again, he let the story get a little bit out of control. So, you know, people would say, well, are you offended by it? Are you upset? No, I'm really not. I mean, it's myself, someone who's experienced their own negative things in life. I personally felt his apology was sincere, and I'm not angry at the guy for him having told the jokes and the stories and any of that. I don't think it's that big of a deal. You know, people will let stuff like this get out of control. They'll make a big deal about it. But I think he handled his damage control pretty well. Looks like it came out pretty quick, and he has admitted, all right, and that's the main thing, guys. Look, when you say something that you realize is probably really, really inappropriate publicly, and we've all done it, well, not all of us, I know I have. You say something that you know is inappropriate, and you really shouldn't have done it, shouldn't have said it, and you're willing to admit, you know what, that wasn't right, I shouldn't have said it, it wasn't even a true story. It's what he said, he exaggerated it. You know what, I'm willing to give some leeway on that. When a person admits, I shouldn't have did that, I pulled the footage, pulled the video, sorry I said that. I think that needs to be the end of it with things like that. I mean, truth be told, I think people do get overly offended by jokes online. They really do. They really aren't as serious sometimes as people make them out to be. And I know a lot of people, they want to jump on everything that people say, you know, and they're like, they just want to destroy them, or people want to crucify people for them telling a joke or something that someone felt is inappropriate. And at a certain point, people have to understand that this is the internet. People are going to say things, they are going to do things. Now, there are lines that shouldn't be crossed, and I think most of us agree with that. There are lines that shouldn't be crossed. I think Bart got pretty close to that line with his story. But at the end of the day, he pulled it down. Like, he had the video pulled, he issued an apology, and he admitted it was inappropriate. And you know what? I'm personally of the opinion that if a person is willing to do that, then there's no harm done. There's no harm done. And again, I'm saying that not as someone out there who's going to be offended. A lot of social justice warriors are hear people say stuff like, well, you didn't think about the feelings of various victims and survivors of things. And, you know, they'll make such a big deal about it. And you know what? You guys need to quit being whiny little bitches is what you need to do. I'm saying as myself, someone who is a survivor of severe childhood abuse of the nature, similar to some things he talked about in the story. I'm really not offended. Really not offended. And the fact of the matter is, he was talking about something totally different. Talking about silly teenage antics, military school antics, private school antics, things like that, and the stupid stuff that people do. And I don't think that's quite the same thing. I really don't. And like he said, he hammed it up to make for a good story and made it a little more over the top than it really was. He really did. But ultimately, again, that's what happens sometimes when people are telling stories and they're entertainers and they're getting into these things and they're trying to be funny and tell a funny story. You can get over the top, and I think you can cross that line. But just like people cross those lines, we have to understand this is the internet, guys. This is the internet, and not everything that people say, even if it's inappropriate, needs to be taken to that extreme to where we need to be offended. And I'm saying, as myself, a personal survivor of things, that I wasn't offended by it. I really wasn't. Because I can tell he didn't mean negative intentions by it. Unlike, when like Callie Muscle has said things. Callie Muscle, for example, I did take that different because he made blatant jokes about child abuse. Blatant jokes about child abuse as himself, obviously a very terrible person who's been in prison, who has no remorse for any of his violent crimes against people. And, left it up and made no apology or anything else and laughed and laughed and laughed while making jokes about child abuse. That's a little bit different because in that case, it's not so much the joke itself that's the issue. Because you know what? Jokes are jokes. It's the difference of when you have someone like that who legitimately deep down thinks that it's funny and totally appropriate to say stuff like that. The concern is that what's that person's mindset really like? And it's not that the words are offensive, because words don't hurt people to the degree that we like to pretend they do. Not like that, not just jokes on YouTube or a video. But it's the fact of the matter of you got to look at the mindset of, is that someone who actually might himself be dangerous? Might he be dangerous to children? And I would say, based upon what I heard in the Callie Muscle talking about wanting to have kids, that's a red flag. That's a cause for concern when you have someone with a history of being a violent criminal, a violent felon. Joking about that's a little bit different than someone like Bart Kwan. Bart Kwan doesn't strike me as a malicious or evil person. I don't get the impression from the guy, just from what I know about him and what I've seen, that he's a bad person who actually really wants to hurt people or do bad things to people. I don't think that's in his nature. And I really think that he was just trying to joke about something to make for a good story for entertainment as an entertainer, and got a little bit carried away. And I think there's a difference there, because I don't think anything he said there has to do with what Bart really feels deep down or something Bart might go do to other people. So it's not so much that we need to be concerned about jokes or words, it's that are they going to turn into action? And there's a big difference between joking on the internet and actually having a mindset that might cause you, based by observing them, to actually go do something really and truly horrific. And I think that's the big difference there. Whereas then I hear someone like Callie Muscle make jokes like that and really laugh about it and like truly be amused by the idea, who we can look at his history, we know he's a violent felon, versus someone like Bart, who seems to be a pretty stand-up guy all around. Like I said, Bart doesn't strike me as a malicious or evil person. And he pulled the footage down, apologized for it, and I don't think we can ask much more of him out of that. And honestly, I don't think people need to be harassing him over it. There's a lot of people who might jump up and freak out, and they're going to go all social justice warrior on him. And in all honesty, I don't think that's necessary at this point. And I'm saying it myself, a survivor myself. I don't hold any ill will towards the guy. I wasn't offended. Was it in bad taste? Yeah, it was in bad taste. It was definitely in bad taste, and he should have pulled it, and I'm glad that he pulled it. And I think that that's the respect that needs to be given. The guy realizes it was in bad taste, realized he made a mistake, had the video pulled, apologizes for it, and I think that's fair to be the end of it and say, you know what, man, you've admitted your wrongdoing, you've apologized for it, you've removed the video. You know what, man, as far as I'm concerned, no harm, no foul, right? No harm, no foul. Bart doesn't seem to be a bad person, and quite frankly, I don't think that people need to come down on him hard over this. I don't think he needs to be harassed or shunned or anything else, and maybe I'm thinking he realizes it was in bad taste, learned a lesson, and he probably won't really tell a joke like that again. And if that's what happens out of it, then that's good. That's fair. And he can get on with his life and do his thing. And what I would say, if you're people listening to that and you're really offended by it, so what? Bart's not going to go do something like that to someone. Again, I don't get that impression. I don't think he's condoning stuff like that. And he just let a joke get a little bit out of hand. That's a little bit different. I don't think that's worthy of people attempting to crucify the guy. It just really isn't. So you know what? I will say on behalf of at least myself as a survivor, Bart, your apologies accepted, brother. You keep doing you. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.